Life looks easy when everything is served to us. A big house, fine clothes, delicious food, all without effort. But what happens when comfort suddenly disappears and we must face the real weight of survival? This is the story of a rich son who had never worked a single day in his life. He thought money was endless, and bread was just something that appeared on the table. But one day his father decided to teach him a lesson. A lesson about life, about respect, and about the true price of bread. So listen carefully, enjoy the story, and also practice these English sentences with me. Let us begin. The Rich Son Who Learned the Price of Bread. Chapter 1. The Life of Comfort. I grew up as the only son of a very rich man. My father owned big shops, beautiful houses, and even cars that I never needed to drive because drivers were always waiting. From the moment I woke up until I went to bed, everything was easy. If I wanted new clothes, my father's assistant bought them. If I wanted a new phone, the newest model arrived at my table. I never thought about cost. To me, money was just like water, always flowing, never stopping. Life felt like a dream, and I believed this dream would last forever. Every morning I woke up late, with the smell of breakfast waiting. Sometimes it was served in bed, sometimes in the garden, but always ready for me. After eating, I played games, watched movies, or wasted hours on my phone. In the evenings, I went out with my friends. We laughed loudly in expensive restaurants, wearing clothes that cost more than many people's monthly pay. Sometimes we drove fast cars through the city, shouting out the window as if the world belonged to us. Nothing seemed hard, nothing seemed serious. My friends sometimes warned me. One day you will have to stand on your own, they said. But I laughed at them. Why should I? I answered. My father has money. That is enough. I thought life was as simple as opening my mouth and asking. I never wondered how that money appeared, never asked my father what he did, never even watched him leave early in the morning. He was just my father, the man who paid for everything. One evening, everything changed a little. My father called me into his study. His face was calm, but serious. Son, he said slowly, you live like a prince. But do you know the price of bread? I laughed out loud. Bread? Father, that is cheap. Why should I care about bread? We can buy hundreds of them. My father shook his head. You will not understand now, he said, but one day you will. His eyes looked heavy with thought, but I shrugged it off. That night, lying in my soft bed, I thought about his words, but only for a moment. Soon I laughed again and said to myself, the price of bread? What a silly question. I will never need to know that. With that thought, I closed my eyes and slept, still believing that my easy life would never end. Chapter 2. A Sudden Fall. The next week, my father suddenly left on a long trip. Before leaving, he called his manager and gave him a strange order. Do not give my son any money until I return. I was standing near the door when I heard it, but I thought he was joking. My father always gave me what I wanted. Why would he stop now? I laughed and ignored it. At first, everything was the same. I had some cash saved in my wallet, so I continued my old life. I went out with friends, bought expensive food, drank fancy drinks, and even ordered clothes I didn't need. I believed that before my money finished, my father would return. But the days passed and the money slowly disappeared. The wallet that once felt thick was now empty. For the first time, I felt a strange fear. I called my father, but his phone was off. I called his manager, but he said firmly, "Your father gave me orders. I cannot give you money." My mouth went dry. I had never heard this word before. No. I went to my friends, hoping they would pay for me. At first, they smiled and bought me food once or twice. But when I asked again, their smiles turned thin. "Sorry, I don't have extra," one said. Another stopped answering my calls. One by one, they disappeared, like smoke in the air. At home, I thought I could at least eat, but when I went to the kitchen, the servants lowered their heads. "Your father told us not to serve you," they whispered. "We are sorry." I could not believe it. Me, the prince of the house, being refused food? I shouted, but they did not move. That night, I sat in my room with an empty stomach. For the first time in my life, I knew hunger. I tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. My body was weak. My mind was restless. I remembered my father's words. "Do you know the price of bread?" Suddenly, those words did not sound silly. They sounded heavy, like stones in my chest. I did not laugh this time. I just lay in the dark, wondering what tomorrow would bring. Chapter 3. The First Taste of Hunger. The next morning, my stomach hurt badly. I had never woken up hungry before. Usually, breakfast waited for me, but today there was nothing. I walked outside slowly, with no car, no driver. My legs felt heavy, but the smell of food pulled me forward. Soon, I reached a bakery. The air was full of warm bread, fresh from the oven. My stomach growled louder. Inside, the baker stood behind the counter, his hands covered in flour. "Good morning," he said kindly. "What do you want?" My eyes fell on a big golden loaf. "How much for this bread?" I asked. $1, he said simply. I reached into my pocket. Empty. I had no money. My face turned red. "Please," I whispered. "I am very hungry. Can you give me just one piece? I promise I will pay later." The baker's smile faded. He shook his head. "Young man, I work from dawn to night to make this bread. I also have children to feed. I cannot give it for free." His words cut me like a knife. I walked out slowly, empty-handed, with tears burning my eyes. I sat on the corner of the street, watching. Men came, gave coins, and walked away with bread. Women came with children, handing over money carefully, then leaving with small bags. I stared at them. Each coin looked heavier than gold. Each piece of bread looked more precious than jewels. My stomach twisted. For the first time I realized bread was not cheap. It was earned. That night I returned home with nothing. I drank some water and lay in bed, my body shaking. My eyes were wet, my heart was heavy. My father's words came back again and again. "Do you know the price of bread?" Now I felt their meaning. But still, the lesson was only beginning. Chapter 4. The Hard Lesson. The next morning, my hunger pushed me back to the bakery. My face was pale, my clothes were wrinkled, and I no longer looked like the rich son of a great man. I stood at the door and waited until the baker noticed me. He raised his eyebrows. "You again?" he asked. I nodded. "Please, sir," I said softly, "let me work. I cannot buy bread, but I will do anything." For a long moment he stared at me. Then, with a sigh, he said, "Fine. Take the broom. Sweep the floor." I picked up the broom awkwardly. My hands had never held such a thing before. At first it seemed simple, but soon my arms ached. Dust rose in the air, sticking to my face and clothes. The baker watched me silently. When I stopped to catch my breath, he said sharply, "Keep moving. Work does not wait." My back bent, sweat rolled down my forehead, and my heart pounded. Yet I continued sweeping until the floor was clean. After that, he asked me to wash trays. They were heavy, covered with crumbs and flour. My soft hands became red, my shirt was wet, but I kept going. I could feel people staring at me, whispering. Some recognized me as the spoiled son of a rich man. I wanted to run away, but my hunger was stronger than my pride. For the first time, I understood what it meant to struggle. When the day finally ended, the baker placed a single loaf of bread in my hands. "Here, this is your pay." I stared at it, my eyes wide. It was simple bread, nothing fancy, nothing special. Yet to me, it looked like treasure. My hands shook as I took a bite. The taste was different. It was not soft luxury food from restaurants. It was warm, real, and heavy with meaning. My eyes filled with tears. I realized this bread was not worth $1. It was worth sweat, pain, and hours of work. That night, as I sat alone in my room, I thought about the workers I had always ignored. People who cleaned streets, people who carried bags, people who worked day and night. Before, I never noticed them. Now I felt close to them. I whispered to myself, "So this is the price of bread." My father's question finally made sense, but my lesson was only beginning, and I did not know how much deeper it would go. Chapter 5. The Return of My Father. Days passed, and I returned to the bakery again and again. I swept floors, carried flour sacks, washed trays, and sometimes even helped serve customers. My back grew stronger, my hands rougher, and my pride smaller. The baker did not praise me much, but each day he gave me bread, and I ate it with the respect of a starving man. Slowly, I was changing without even knowing it. One hot afternoon, I was wiping sweat from my forehead when I heard the door open. A familiar figure stepped inside. My heart stopped. It was my father. He stood silently, watching me hold a dirty tray in my hands. My face turned red. I felt ashamed, like a thief caught stealing. My father walked slowly toward the counter. The baker smiled and said, "Your son is learning well. He is not lazy. He works hard when he is hungry." I looked at the floor, unable to meet my father's eyes. I expected anger, maybe even laughter. But instead, my father placed his hand on my shoulder. His touch was gentle, yet heavy with meaning. "Now," he whispered, "you know the price of bread." My throat closed, and my eyes filled with tears. For the first time, I understood that my father's silence, his trip, his strange orders, all of it was part of a plan. We walked home together. Neither of us spoke at first. The streets looked different now. I noticed the tired men carrying goods, the women selling vegetables, the children helping their parents. They were not invisible anymore. They were people like me, except they worked for every coin. My heart softened, and I realized I had been blind for too long. That evening, we sat at the dinner table. My father did not serve me rich food. Instead, he placed the loaf of bread I had earned in the center. He cut it, gave me half, and said, "Eat, son. This is not just food. This is respect. Remember this taste." I ate slowly, each bite heavy with meaning. For the first time, I was truly proud. Not because I had money, but because I had worked for it. Chapter 6, A New Beginning. The next morning, my father called me into his study. Sunlight fell across his desk as he looked at me with calm, proud eyes. "Do you understand now, son?" he asked softly. I nodded, my heart beating fast. "Yes, father. Bread is not cheap. Money is not magic. Everything has a price, and that price is work." My father leaned back in his chair and smiled for the first time in many days. "Good," he said. "Now you are ready." From that day, he began to take me to his shops and his office. But this time, it was different. I did not walk in like a prince asking for money. I walked in like a student, eager to learn. My father introduced me to his workers, showed me the papers, and explained the decisions he made each day. I listened carefully, asked questions, and even stayed late. Slowly, I began to see his world. It was not easy, but it was real. At first, I made mistakes. I forgot numbers, wrote wrong notes, and even upset some workers with my clumsy ways. But I did not quit. I remembered the bakery. I remembered the heavy broom in my hands, the taste of that bread. Those memories pushed me to keep going. I was no longer afraid of work. I was learning, step by step, how to carry responsibility. Weeks turned into months. One evening, my father called me again. He opened a drawer and took out a small silver key. Placing it in my hand, he said, "This is your office now. You are ready for more." My eyes widened. The key was small, but it felt heavy, like a mountain. It was not just metal. It was trust. My father was giving me a piece of his world. As I sat alone in that office for the first time, I looked at the desk, the chair, the papers. My heart was full. I was no longer the spoiled boy who laughed at the price of bread. I was a man who understood its value. My journey had changed me. And I knew deep inside that this lesson would stay with me forever, guiding me through life, reminding me that nothing is free and everything worth having must be earned.